Tonight, an Indigenous man has been identified in Winnipeg's latest homicide. After decades of calls and recommendations, cell phone towers have now been installed along BC's Highway of Tears. Good evening, Happy New Year, and thank you for joining us. I'm Krisanachkate. Welcome to APTN National News. The victim of a recent homicide in Winnipeg has been identified as a man from the Opioid Cree Nation in northern Manitoba. Last Friday at around 4:36 a.m., Winnipeg police were notified by the Winnipeg Fire and Paramedic Service of a man who had injuries consistent with an assault. The WFPS located the man on Douglas Street in Winnipeg and gave him emergency medical care. He was transported to hospital in critical condition where he later died. On Monday, the victim was identified as 50-year-old Byron Moose. A vigil was held on Tuesday evening near the site of the incident. Friends and family described Moose as a caring uncle, brother, son, and nephew on social media. The homicide investigation continues this week. Saskatchewan RCMP are asking the public's help in locating an inmate that managed to escape from the Saskatchewan Penitentiary in Prince Albert just before New Year's. Correctional Service of Canada says 29-year-old Glenn Frederick Richard Halkett was unaccounted for following a routine inmate count on Tuesday evening. Then on New Year's Day at around 11 a.m., RCMP located Halkett in the driver's seat of a vehicle that was about to leave a residence in the community of Little Red River Cree Nation north of Prince Albert. That's when the RCMP turned their emergency lights on and the vehicle picked up speed and struck the RCMP cruiser and got away. The vehicle was later located, but Halkett was nowhere to be seen. Halkett is 5'8", 168 pounds. He has brown eyes, black long hair, and has a tattoo on his neck and under his left eye. If you see Halkett, do not approach and call RCMP or police immediately. The Yukon Coroner Service is also investigating a death that took place at the Whitehorse Correctional Centre last month. In an email to APTN News, Chief Coroner Heather Jones said the inmate died during the early hours of Monday, December 23rd. She says no other information will be released at this time as the investigation is ongoing. A spokesperson for the Territories Department of Justice declined to comment, also due to the ongoing investigation. 5 new cellular towers along British Columbia's Highway of Tears have been added to the boost to access 911 and wireless cell service. Since the late 1960s, dozens of mostly Indigenous women and girls have gone missing or have been murdered along the Highway of 16 corridor between Prince Rupert and Prince George. The 2006 Highway of Tears Symposium report suggested increasing cell phone coverage and installing more emergency phone booths along the highway. As of Monday, Rogers Communications says it has activated 9 out of 11 towers along the route as part of the province's Connecting British Columbia program. Once completed, it will provide continuous cell service along the 720-kilometer stretch. In a statement, MMIWG activist Mary T.G. said the towers are lifelines for the North and praised Rogers for expanding access. Now to take a look back at 2024 in Manitoba, the calls to search the landfill dominated much of this year's headlines, and Manitobans experienced the profound loss of some prominent Indigenous leaders. Here's T.R. Wheatley with that roundup and a warning. Some of the stories here are a little heavy. Please watch with care.
In January, Cambria Harris, daughter of Morgan Harris, one of 4 women killed by a serial killer, filed a human rights complaint against the PC and NDP government in Manitoba. Morgan's remains are believed to have ended up in the Prairie Green landfill. The complaint focuses on the Manitoba election at the center of the Conservative campaign. Do not search the landfill, saying it was not feasible. In February, Ryan Manaway-Kezik made headlines after he killed his partner Amanda Clearwater, their 3 kids Bethany, Javen, and Isabella, and his partner's niece Maya Grattan. MMIWG had a history of abusing drugs and alcohol. At one point, he was told by a judge to get his methamphetamine addiction under control. MMIWG is still awaiting his trial date. Big news came in March for the families of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron after a year of fighting to search the landfill for the remains of 2 women from Long Plain First Nation.
And it's going to be survivor and family-led going forward.
$40 million was announced for searching Prairie Green, with both the feds and the province committing half each. Rebecca Contois, Harris, and Myron, along with the still unidentified person given the name Mashkode Bijike Ikwe, or Buffalo Woman, were all killed by Jeremy Skibitsky in 2022. Also in March, a historic victory for some of the most vulnerable in Manitoba, a $530 million settlement from the province for children in the child welfare system over misappropriation of special allowances over a 14-year period. The settlement affecting roughly 30,000 kids in care between 2004 and 2019. Each could receive tens of thousands of dollars in compensation.
We were adamant that every cent has to go back to these kids.
And it was this past spring, Premier Wab Kinew went viral after a photo of him changing a tire was posted online. That picture turned into internet memes. From Kinew picking berries to making an Indian taco to gutting a moose and even milking a cow.
Makes you stay humble, right? Like, you're never going to be accused of acting too good.
The Premier even joined in on the laughs with his staff and family. May saw the start of the trial of serial killer Jeremy Skibitsky for Contois, Harris, Myron, and Buffalo Woman. He originally pleaded not guilty, but the day before the trial started, his lawyer switched to not criminally responsible due to mental illness. The trial went until mid-June with over a dozen witnesses, including neighbors, police officers, homeless shelter staff, and a psychiatrist for the Crown. Meanwhile, defense had a psychiatrist as their lone witness. As well, in June, the Manitoba NDP announced for the first time its plans for searching the landfill. It would roll out as a 5-phase approach and explained all the work that needed to be done even before a physical search could begin, including removing waste from above the target area and building a semi-permanent structure that would withstand all weather conditions. Then, on July 11, Chief Justice Glenn Joyal gave an oral verdict. Skibitsky was guilty of first-degree murder ×4, and Joyal later gave his written decision on August 28 after families and Manitobans alike had time to do victim impact statements. He would get life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years to be served concurrent, Joyal saying it's the maximum sentence he can give under Canadian law.
It's now or never.
This past summer, the iconic Métis musician Ray St. Germain passed away at 83 years old. His wife Glory shared the news in late June, saying St. Germain had been dealing with Parkinson's disease. Just weeks before he passed, he was honored with the renaming of his childhood street. The summer also saw the first ever Miss Indigenous pageant take place, with 26 Indigenous women competing for the crown. While the pageant was held in Six Nations, Ontario, the winner, Jessica McKenzie, is a member of the Opaskwayak Cree Nation in northern Manitoba. The 30-year-old planned to use her platform to strengthen community ties. In September, Manitoba was hit with the death of Grand Chief Kathy Merrick of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. Merrick collapsed on the steps of the courthouse as she was speaking to media about a court verdict, community saying she fought to her last breath for the people. Amongst her years of advocacy, Merrick was most known for her work near the end of her life, where she pushed to get the landfill search. Merrick was also honored with a day to lay in state, where thousands of people attended before she was taken home to Pimachikamak Cree Nation for a traditional burial. In October, 11 First Nations in northern Manitoba were amongst the first to start sounding the alarm about the backlog of Jordan's principal cases in the hands of the federal government. The Keewatin Tribal Council said at the time they had to bridge finance over $8 million, taking away from other critical services. They said Manitoba had some of the highest numbers of cases pending. November saw the passing of Justice Murray Sinclair at 73 years old. Sinclair was most known for leading the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. He was the first Indigenous person called to the bench in Manitoba. He also co-chaired the Aboriginal Justice Inquiry that focused on racism within policing and the justice system. Over his years of service, he had dozens of accolades, including an Order of Canada. While Sinclair was buried in a traditional Medewan funeral privately, there was a public memorial held in Winnipeg where the Prime Minister, Governor General, and many prominent Indigenous leaders attended.
But you look at pride, he brought pride back to our people without anybody realizing.
Also in November, Jason Kennedy from Bloodvein First Nation spoke out about a medical procedure that left him with the wrong leg amputated.
I was devastated. I was heartbroken.
The 48-year-old diabetic had surgery at Grace Hospital in late October after his right foot was in pain and bleeding. Medical staff told him he needed amputation due to a bone infection. But when he woke from surgery, the left leg was gone. A critical incident review is underway by the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority. In a statement, Manitoba's health minister said a review is investigating whether racial bias played a role. And in December, the physical search of the Prairie Green landfill began 2 years after the Harris and Myron families received devastating news their loved ones ended up there. The project's lead remained hopeful that they are in the right area as they have uncovered items with dates showing May 2022. The families were involved in the process, including choosing those on the front lines of the search. In total, there are 3 teams of 12 searchers that rotate shift work 6 days a week. Meanwhile, another daughter of Harris, Elle Harris, along with 2 other Indigenous women, filed a separate human rights complaint, this time saying the city of Winnipeg discriminated against the women when they chose not to search the landfill. The complaint has 18 reference points the city ignored. And that's the kind of year it's been for 2024 here in Manitoba. Thank you for welcoming APTN News into your lives. For many of you, it's during some of your tougher times. We are privileged to share your stories. Kinanaskamitin. TR Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Thank you, TR. We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation with us. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories you may have missed, you can go to www.aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, LinkedIn, and X. And you can watch this newscast anywhere, anytime on YouTube. Follow along with us at APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. We have to take a short break, but when we return, our Tina House looks back at the news of 2024 in British Columbia. We'll be right back. back. 2024 was quite a year in British Columbia. It included the ongoing drug epidemic, more calls from MMIWG advocates, and the sudden loss of an ally for Indigenous people. Our video journalist Tina House takes a look back at some of the stories that kept her busy.
The opioid epidemic continues to take countless lives and destroy families. On June the 22nd, 2019, Glenn Rebick was just 29 years old when he went to downtown Vancouver to meet some friends and used what he thought was cocaine, but unknowingly it was laced with fentanyl. He died using alone. His mother, Meredith Dan, struggles with his loss every day.
Every time, with every update, with everything that's gone through in the 4.5 years with this battle, I keep getting brought back in a time warp back to the moment that I found out, first of all, Glenn is dead. And it's taken that time. It's taken so much time for me to try to heal, because getting pulled back to that moment, I take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. But now that this is over, I'm hoping after 4.5 years, I'll be able to start moving forward the way that Glenn would want and expect me to, instead of just being sad all the time.
This countdown clock has been running on her phone since Glenn died. It's a constant reminder of that terrible day her life was torn apart.
This opioid crisis, the severity of that fentanyl that it has and how strong it is and how it's killing so many people really needs to be addressed and understood, that it could happen to anyone.
And the clock is ticking as officials are still scrambling to find solutions to this crisis. In 2016, an opioid epidemic was declared in Canada. Since then, it has taken the lives of over 38,000 people nationwide and counting. Over 10,000 people marched along the streets of the downtown east side of Vancouver, stopping along the way where many were found murdered or disappeared from.
This march began with the brutal killing of Cheryl and Joe in 1992 as a way to honor her memory and to make visible her killing, and a way for families to grieve.
Since her killing, and obviously before as well, there's been many women that have been killed down here and are still continued to be missing. You knew many of those women. Can you tell me about a few of them?
Well, one of the things that we started to see after the killing of Cheryl and Joe was an increase in missing and murdered women here from this neighborhood. And so we know that there were at least 3 serial killers that were operating in this neighborhood through the 1990s. And that one of them, we know, has got a bit more attention. But there were at least three serial killers at the time. So the march has been a really important way to make visible, but also to mourn and to seek justice. And it's been a vital way for community to organize.
It all began in 2002 when police arrived at the farm belonging to the Picton family in Port Coquitlam with a warrant to search for firearms. Officers stumbled upon discarded women's clothing and personal items strewn about the property. That's when one of the largest investigations in Canadian history began. Robert Picton was charged in the deaths of 26 women, but only went to trial for 6. He was found guilty of second-degree murder. A candlelight vigil was held at the former property, where so many women lost their lives. The event is also meant to raise awareness about what they call a serious flaw in the judicial system. Lorelei Williams' cousin Tanya Holick's DNA was found on the property. Picton never went to trial for her murder, but Williams organized this event and was visibly emotional when speaking.
This is what we have to live with, and the fact that he can apply just shows how much they don't care for us.
Robert Willie Picton was eligible for day parole in February of 2024, but on May 31st, 2024, Picton died from injuries he sustained from an attack by another inmate while in maximum security prison. In September, the national organization overseeing doctors in Canada is seeking forgiveness at a ceremony in downtown Victoria.
The racism and discrimination that Indigenous peoples and healthcare providers face is deplorable. and we are deeply ashamed. As the national voice of the medical profession, we are sorry for the actions and the inactions of physicians, residents, and medical students that have harmed Indigenous peoples.
Known as the People's Premier, John Horgan was undoubtedly one of the most popular premiers in British Columbia's history. He served as premier for the New Democratic Party from 2014 to 2022, when he stepped down after announcing he had cancer. He is the only premier to be elected twice in BC. During his time in office, one of his major accomplishments was to be the first province in Canada to bring in the United Nations Declaration for the Rights of Indigenous People into law.
It has truly been the honor of my lifetime to be the Premier of British Columbia, and I want to thank all of you for your very generous applause, and to all British Columbians, thank you for your service to a better world for all of us. It has been a tremendous ride.
John Joseph Horgan lost his battle with cancer on November the 12th, 2024, but his legacy will live on. Tansei, on behalf of everybody at APTN National News' BC Bureau, we want to wish you a very happy holidays. I'm Tina House, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you, Tina. A harm reduction organization in Whitehorse says there's been an uptick in overdoses at the supervised consumption site it operates in recent days. Blood Ties 4 Direction Center, which oversees the site, says 3 people overdosed in one day at the site earlier this week, a number that's higher than usual. Thankfully, all 3 people survived. The center provides a safe space for people who use drugs. Staff on site are available to help users if they experience an overdose. The organization says the vast majority of overdoses at the site involve fentanyl. Jill Allhoos is the Blood Ties Executive Director.
With the severity of them and reports we've had that there have been a number of overdoses in the community, we felt it was worth letting everyone know and sending out a reminder to people to use harm reduction strategies to keep themselves and each other safe.
Blood Ties encourages people who use drugs to not use alone and make sure to carry naloxone. You can also call the National Overdose Response Service that is non-judgmental at 1-888-688-6677. Photo of the day and weather is up next. Stay with us. Plus, Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Happy New Year to all of our viewers out there, and it was nothing short of another beautiful morning in the Gitxsan Nation as Clarence Jones shares these snow-covered mountains. Thank you, Clarence, for always coming in clutch with those nice scenic views. With a new year upon us, send us your pictures to share at aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the east, St. John's 4, Charlottetown -5. Happy Valley, Goose Bay -1, La Grande River -3. Quebec City -11, Saint Jovite -9. London -2, Sarnia -1. -18 in Sioux Lookout, Timmins -15. Churchill sunny and -27, Thompson -25. Winnipeg -18, Dauphin -19. -22 in Yorkton, Saskatoon -26. Sunny and -30 in Stony Rapids, Uranium City -27. Partly cloudy in Peace River at -25, Fort McMurray -21. -17 in Red Deer, Calgary -16. Quesnel -8, Bella Coola -2. Sandspit 6, Smithers -12. Old Crow -37, Rock River -29. Wati -25, Wrigley -37. -30 in Sax Harbor, Tuktoyaktuk -33. Whale Cove -29, Baker Lake -34. In Arctic Bay -33, Agulik -29. British researchers have unearthed the biggest ever dinosaur footprint site in the United Kingdom. The discovery was made in a quarry in Oxfordshire. About 200 huge footprints crisscross the limestone floor. It's estimated the footprints date back 166 million years. They reveal the comings and goings of two different types of dinosaurs. The longest trackways are 150 meters in length. Pretty cool. And the Toronto Raptors have unveiled a newly reimagined Indigenous-inspired logo designed by a Kitchener, Ontario artist. By Luke Swinson will be displayed on jerseys and merchandise for Monday's Indigenous Heritage Game. Swinson has Anishinaabe roots and is a member of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. The Raptors will host their annual Indigenous Heritage Game on January 6th when they host the Milwaukee Bucks at Scotiabank Arena. And that's your evening newscast for this Thursday, January 2nd. We wrapped up our holidays and are back to your normal programming starting tomorrow. We'll see you again.